All right, we're live. Welcome everyone to Table Talk, where we talk all things tabletop. I'm your host, The Bella Gamer, with my co-host Glue Boy.
Hello.
And today we're gonna be talking about one of the hardest questions in tabletop, which is, what makes a good DM? I think this is a much harder question than it might seem on the surface.
Yeah, I think so. No, just sitting thinking about it.
Especially because, in contrast, I feel like what makes a good player is actually a lot easier to answer.
Significantly.
But before we get into that, we'll do some small talk. So if you're unfamiliar, you hop in about like 15 minutes and we'll probably get into the main topic at that point. So Alex, what's been up?
Man, out of like video YouTube stuff, annoying ass week, and so much that I've taken a small little break from making any YouTube. It's been nice. It's been great. Been playing a lot of Mega Bonk. That game is fantastic. Just Risk of Rain 2 Vampire Survivors. Let's go. And I've just been relaxing while little tiny things pop up that annoy me. We had to go do an emergency fix for my fiance's computer, my old one, because I used to have that funny issue where if you turn off the computer, there's a chance it could never turn on again.
Yeah.
Yeah, the power supply bricked itself like a couple days ago.
Yeah.
So we had to go get a new one. Thankfully, not like horrifically expensive. But yeah, just running around a lot. Now things are slowing, and I'm just waiting. I'm waiting for some fun callbacks, work related. But yeah, I've been doing nothing. It feels weird.
Yeah, I can imagine. Oh, it's been hard because, as you all may know, I have a baby, and so as much as there's a lot I would like to do, watching a baby is literally like a 24-hour job.
It really is.
Especially because she's going through her 8th month sleep regression. She's cutting another tooth in. So one of her favorite things is to wake up around 4 or 5 a.m. and then be up for like 30 minutes to an hour. And she goes to bed at like 11 or midnight. So
Damn.
it's been hard, especially because I've been trying to take a couple hours after I put her to bed to like do me stuff. And yeah, it's just been hard. Also, we just last week, we all had a friend hang out at my family's cabin, which was really fun.
It was very fun.
And there's just been a lot going on. So I do want to make more content. A video is releasing, surprisingly, tomorrow, which is going to be great. We got to talk with one of the guys at What Is Tabletop, and we got to just kind of hang out. It was kind of cool. So check that video out tomorrow, 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. And
yeah, the video was fun to make, and I've checked out their channel since, and yeah, they got some fun videos.
It's just hard. It's hard to find good tabletop content that doesn't put me to sleep. So
it's hard for me to find tabletop content I enjoy, period, because like a lot of it is too much in the camp of I play this game, I don't particularly care, and like the exceptions is now them and like your stuff, because you're telling me the things that will be pertinent for games we play together in the future. Like, this is super convenient and easy.
Yeah. But yeah, I'll hopefully be getting back on track on things here real soon. And yeah, I don't know. Surprisingly, not a lot of like small talk this time around, I guess.
I mean, we didn't. It sounds like we've both just been in that boat of like not doing much else besides one thing. Me, nothing. You, child.
Yeah.
Will say though, I'm probably gonna have to get the Mistborn tabletop or board game now, because like we were going home and got it. CC found how expensive it is. It's like, oh shit, it's like $30.
Yeah, it's like $34.
Yeah, it was like, it's not bad, especially like we found it on Amazon. So probably going to own that game soon.
Yeah, by the way, big call out to the Mistborn deck builder game. It's actually really good.
It's so good.
It honestly, I keep bouncing back whether I like it or Tyrants of the Underdark more.
I think both games have a lot of like positives, a lot of benefits. Like the part of the Mistborn game that I think works a little better. I think it's faster, and in the way that like the pace can be a lot faster, as well as just the ability of playing it with your friends when you actually understand what you're doing. I think there's a lot of really cool combo potential, but like Tyrants hits a different vibe of like board game on top of it.
Yeah, I don't know. My only gripe, and maybe this is just the thing in Tyrants of the Underdark, promoting units to out of your deck essentially is just objectively one of the best ways to win the game. Though in Mistborn, getting mission points seems to be also just one of the best ways to win, because I think of the last handful of games, I don't think there was a non-victory point victory or a mission point victory.
Like, I can see the method of dealing damage to everybody to win, like killing to win. I think the Lord Ruler route of winning that game is just so tough, because like very realistically, if everyone is playing the game properly, the more likely thing that would occur each time is somebody wins before you can finish your Lord Ruler combo. Because I had all the pieces, I just didn't have it in time because I didn't have deck efficiency.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I have to play it a bit more because honestly, if you go Shan and you just go super econ really early and you get lucky and the Lord Ruler card comes up and you get a very thin deck, you could probably do it. But yeah,
that was the route I went. It was just like I got super unlucky in the deck building part because like we didn't have like any efficiency cards to cut things from our deck, or if we did, it was bought by someone else.
Though I will say the one thing about the Lord Ruler victory is if you get the winning hand, the game is over unless someone else wins before you do. So
yeah, exactly. Like
everything else, there's at least some way of counterplay. You know, there are cards like, well, there's like one card, there should be more, that can remove mission points from someone. And
that would be handy. Like the only way I can think of like improving the pace of the game, just without having played that crazy amount, I can just see like having another mission, because like it just seems like there's a lot of routes to victory. Mission points are the easiest and the fastest to get.
I don't think so. I think the thing with mission points is it's kind of just mission point victories happen at the point in the game where I think any kind of victory besides like Lord Ruler really is likely. Because honestly, I think we just need to play a bit more, and I feel like there'll be some more better killer characters. At least someone who can get rid of one player in a 4-man game. In a 3-man game, yeah, in a 3-man game, like damage is very strong. So I don't know. We'll just have to play more, which I'm okay with.
I mean, it's on Tabletop Sim too, so we can
play
more physical thing. But it's part of the. I want to like delve into it and play a lot of it because it's fun, and I hope they make an expansion. I hope they do that second part expansion for book 2. It's just otherwise, like, they make some good ass board games.
Yeah,
like I like their tabletop stuff, but Call to Adventure is just already one of my favorites. Like, that game is just so fun. And now we have this one.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I just want them to keep making board games too.
Yeah. Oh, when you guys move up here, then we can have board game nights and we can just play all the board games.
True. It is one thing. I keep going down this rabbit hole on like TikTok and such, and just if one day I get like expendable income, I can just throw away money. I want to start my own board game collection, but not like your board game collection, not like great games. I'm just such a sucker for like gimmick board games.
Yeah.
Board games where you're like, that is a giant hunk of plastic, where it has like weird setup or just some dumb gimmick thing. Like I found a board game that's you're climbing a mountain, and there's a couple things like it's a ball on a track, and there's a couple things where if you do it, a ball rolls down a specific track and it hits you, your hiker falls down. There's a weirdly really expansive Titanic survival board game where the ship sinking is only half of the game. It's like I like those type of games where you're like, who made this? And who is this for?
Reminds me of the old Rat Trap board game.
Yeah, it's like that, but like picture like that game, but more complicated.
Yeah,
and that's my vibe. I just there's a TikTok account I follow of this guy who just has a bunch of them, and he just like shows how it works, and you're just like, dang. It's like there's another board game that's really cool. It's like laser chess. It's just reflective mirrors and stuff. You have to play it in the dark. Like that kind of shit. That's my jam.
And to Andrew, so I have been looking at Genesis, which, you know, roughly is the same system as like the Star Wars. Which Star Wars game was it?
The Fantasy Flight.
It was the Fantasy Flight, yeah. System. And I do think it'll be fun to try out. I have been looking into it. I will probably pick it up at some point. But it will be some time because right now we're playing through Stonewalkers, and we do want to get to the end of that just because a lot of us are Cosmere fans, and we want to know what interesting Cosmere revelations we'll get through the story, which there are some. And, you know, give Cosmere a good shot. And to be honest as well, I think we'll finish the Stonewalkers campaign not that much longer than we normally would for our short campaigns. So
makes sense. It seems like the pace for this game is pretty quick.
The next chapter is a little longer, so that's kind of nice. But
okay.
But I think we're still like we'll get it done in like within 20 sessions, I think. Also, speaking on Dominic, hey, glad you are enjoying the content. We plan on keeping at it, and there's gonna be some interesting stuff coming up here real soon. We're gonna probably get to see the Night Mother.
That'll be fun.
And then after Stonewalkers, we're probably gonna play Anima.
Yeah.
But Genesis might cut in as. Didn't you finish chapter 4 already? No, but we will probably next session. It's a very short chapter, actually. Like 2 endeavors and then 2 combats, I think is all it is.
Damn.
We'll play some Anima, and then I might cut in Genesis as like a little breather during our Anima stuff.
Yeah, I'd have to look at the system because I just know I haven't yet picked a game that's like my game for us to play.
Yeah.
If I look into Genesis and I see it's doing the same thing, like I've heard like some critiques of the system, but if it hits the same notes as the Star Wars one, I want everyone to experience the peak of this dice system.
It's very much pretty much the same with some exceptions, but yeah.
Yeah, because like I just fully love its advantage disadvantage system. I think it's just so well done.
Mm-hmm. So we'll probably look into it, but you know, tabletop's a long thing. It's a once a week game. But yeah, all right. So today's topic, the hardest question in TTRPGs: what makes a good GM? I think a lot of pressure is put on the GM's position, and I think for good reason, because you could still have a game with bad players, but you can't really have a game with a bad GM.
Yeah, you need like the person that makes the game happen.
And not only that, but like one aspect of what makes TTRPGs what TTRPGs are kind of the immersive simulationist kind of aspects, you know. You are in a world, and so the GM attempts to recreate that world to the best of their ability and react to the things that the players do. And that is all completely dependent on your GM skill in order to do that. Like when it's what makes a good player, you want a player who pays attention, and you want a player who matches the vibe of the group, and that's kind of about it, you know.
Yeah, like you want a player that's going to like meld well with your style and play the game and like pay attention, not just show up, be on their phone for a few hours. Like that's it.
Yeah.
Uh, the GM is a lot more intensive of a thing because like even just the that statement of like need a person who's there to make the game happen. That also extends to the point of where the pressure kind of builds in. You need a person that motivates others to get onto the game.
Yeah.
Because like if a GM is just not very good and the game kind of sucks, it's going to start falling apart. Like if a game is just really good, sure it can still fall apart for like other reasons. There's a lot of situations where it can still happen. But like it's something that motivates a player to still be talking about the game afterwards.
Yeah. I mean, the GM is a strong part of the equation, but they're not 100%. Like you need the players to buy in at some
because
point.
you have an amazing GM, but like an amazing GM but shit players. Like yeah, 100%, that game's gonna collapse. But it is like I can put up with a bad player or two in the table if the game is really good. I would prefer them not be there then, but
Yeah.
it just is that way. If the GM is just like really bad, because I've played in a handful of games where it's like, oh, this GM, like I don't think you've done this very much.
Yeah.
And like no fault to them, but the experience of playing was like fucking mind numbing. It's like what is actually occurring where we are.
Another reason why I think this is such an interesting question is the GM really determines your overall experience in TTRPGs. And I think this is why so many people have very different expectations or very different ideas of like what a TTRPG is or how it's played. Because, right, Legends of Adventures, I think, is a really, really great show. It's really, really funny. But if I'm going to be honest, the GMs, because like the players will periodically take position as GM,
Yeah.
I wouldn't say they are inherently very good GMs, but that might just be because of the overall setup, because it's more of a comedy show than it is an actual tabletop.
Yeah, the point, like the show is set up to essentially allow players to improv comedy. Like I think from how much I've seen of it, I think Nikki is probably the best GM there.
Yeah.
Nikki, and then like the guy, I forget his name, Mikey. Those two,
Yeah.
I think, are just some of the best GMs there. But it is that thing, that small bit that makes up for what can be a lot of GM skill. And even because the current game they're doing, the sci-fi thing,
Yeah.
it's really funny. There are moments where it's clear he's like, oh, this guy isn't GM'd as much.
Yeah, Mason
He has some bits, but like it's still really fun to follow because like there's some great bits, and like that's the point of it, because it's the reason I like the show is because I can watch improv comedy rather than like watching someone play D&D, because I find the latter a bit mind numbing. I just don't like it.
And it's
having that good vibe of like your friends where everyone is just like, oh, the point of this is that we're getting together to have fun rather than get to play D&D. That's like, I think the handicap you can have as a GM, where you can be like, okay, I'm not a fantastic GM, but the vibes that are created at the table are immaculate.
Right. And so that's kind of where I think the idea of like what makes a good GM, I mean, if you want a TLDR, is a GM, the best GM is the GM you have the most fun playing with.
Oh yeah, it's the same way of like, who's the best player at your table? The one who like builds up the most fun in the moment.
Yeah. So it's a very personal thing, but I do think that there are some aspects that are important. One is like improv skill. A GM needs the ability to just be able to react to the players and not just kind of lose all their cards as soon as someone goes off the track.
Yeah, you're because I mean, it's the dismissive way of putting it always of like you're there to run a game, tell a story. You're not running a book,
Right.
and like it is important for you to be able to flow with that, even if you have to make it regimented. That's one thing I did as someone who I was not as great at improving, but I also wasn't great at setup. So I just melded. I'm like, all right, let me make a skeletal structure of like what I think the session's gonna be, make a bunch of like offshoots of what could happen. But regardless, I have a framework I am working within. So if something goes like off topic, I'm not scrambling for like what happens.
Right, yeah. And to be fair, I never prep. Almost never
No,
prep.
you're pure.
But I'm a bit of an exception to the rule. And to be fair, I do think my games could be better if I had just an ounce more prep. So, and that's kind of a thing as well, is the idea of a bad GM existing, or like there's traits of a bad GM, does mean inherently that there are traits of a good GM. And so a good GM like skill set must exist. And so I think it's so hard because Brennan Lee Mulligan, I think, is actually a really good GM. But I feel like what we watch on Dimension 20 is not him GMing how he normally would.
No, like the one GM I think that we are watching has actual style when he's playing. Well, two actually. Uh, is Matthew Mercer.
Yeah.
Because he is a very like by the book, like let's arbitrate, let's rule. And Brennan is running it how I would run if like a game if I was in a production. Because in the moment of that type of show, we don't have time to delve through all the books. Like we need to keep going. This is like costing money, so let's keep on a good pace. The other one is if you've listened to anything with Brian Murphy, like his actual like podcast.
That's the Play by Night one, right?
It's I want to say it's like Nat 20 or something like pod. I don't remember the name of it. I gotta look him up. What is his D&D podcast? Oh, not another D&D podcast. That's what. Yeah, his GM style, he's really good. His like really good specialty when it comes to GMing is he has some of the best examples of gamifying D&D I've ever seen, because like he's super good at creating like an encounter. Like you have this big combat, there's a bunch of different mechanics that you can opt into, and like he's tracking all of it really well. That is like his definite skill set. He knows the rules super well, and he's able to make like really interesting mechanics and things to interact with inside of an encounter. I think it's him and Matthew Mercer are the two like actual play GMs I've seen, the big names that I feel like we are getting a glimpse at their home game.
Yeah. And to be fair, we've seen some of Matt Mercer's home games because they did record some of them back in the day. So it's very much the same. And Andrew, I do see your question, but I'm going to segue real quick because Alex brought up a good point. Something I've been feeling lately, and I think it's just been because I haven't been playing the same system pretty regularly, is I've been thinking a lot because we are thinking about going back to Anima, or I guess we are going back to Anima. I don't think there's any more thinking involved.
I hope
not. No think, only Anima.
Yeah, the more you're thinking about it, the less Anima we're playing.
Exactly. Back in the Anima days, I feel like it was some of the best TTRPGs stuff I've ever run, but that was because it was a game that I played religiously a lot, and it was a game that I had such a hold on, such mastery, because I needed to, because the game is just broken otherwise, that like it was a game that I could just craft for the story for the players, which has been very hard to do jumping from system to system where I'm learning the rules. And a part of why we do a lot of these like short campaigns is to show the system off, and so I try not to deviate from the rule sets too much. And
it's important to like because we also want to like we want to judge the game as even like as on the player side, we want to judge the game for like what the game is.
Yeah.
we want to make sure, like, if we say, oh yeah, we've played such and such, we played Vampire the Masquerade. I want to be able to say I played VTM, not your version of VTM.
Yeah.
Like, one is an ability for me to give an honest review and honest recommendations, rather than like, here's some good homebrew you can do.
And really, that is interesting because I feel like that's why D&D has become so popular, is not just because it is like the common touchstone. I don't think D&D would have blown up as much as it had if it wasn't for the fact that I think the system is just like kind of like half there and half broken enough, where so many GMs made it their thing, played it enough and made it their thing to make these games really, really good, that D&D does what Anima does, which is hilarious to me in concept, which is it's got some good ideas, but you really need a lot of duct tape and super glue to keep it together. And how the GM uses the game's implements and what they create with that, I think really made the game interesting. D&D 5e was great because GMs could just make up things because the rule set was honestly really easy to manipulate and to do stuff with.
And it's so like bare bones like that. If anything, like outside of just people enjoying the game, I think it's really easy to get somebody into D&D, even just getting the idea of D&D, because like all these actual play shows can run their version, and like most people won't recognize that it's not exactly from the book D&D, because like it's just a lot of things slot in really well. It's like, I know that Dimension 20 uses a very modified version that is Brennan's version of D&D.
Yeah.
But I don't think anybody else really knows or cares unless you play a lot of it.
Yeah.
So it's really easy in that way to slot in homebrew, and it's so accepted.
It's expected to homebrew D&D.
Yeah.
There's no other way.
There's another aspect of it that I think, just building off of this, there is a bit of a difference as like what I enjoy out of playing a tabletop game, when we're comparing doing a bunch of short games versus like a long game, or playing one system. Because I adore playing different systems because I believe it's a good thing you should do.
Yeah.
On the other hand, I think one of the aspects that made our Anima era like so like golden age almost, I think there's a different investment and level of care when you know that what you're doing in the game at that moment will have ramifications for something you're going to do in a year's time.
Yeah.
Like, that's something I enjoy. It's the reason like I will be out here defending the stock staple, like a long game, or like fantasy epic, like adventuring, like what you picture when you picture a D&D game. I have such a soft spot for playing in the same world for a long time.
Yeah.
I have a massive soft spot for it. I think it's so fun. I will be the first person pointing at the screen, soy jacking excitedly when I see a reference to a previous campaign. I'm a sucker for it. And that was one of the aspects of Anima, and still the aspect of Anima I enjoy. It's why I build all my characters to have some effect on the world that could be used later. Because I love the idea of helping build up a collaborative story and then helping world building with the GM. I find a lot of fun in that.
Yeah, and actually, so that's a great segue back to Andrew's question here. So Andrew asks, what do you think of games that say a GM should just be another player and the players should be adding to the story as much as the GM does? So I'm gonna say first and foremost, no TTRPG specifically states that the GM should just be another player. There's a lot of games that say that the GM should be on the same level as players or implies that, but the GM is not a player. The GM is the GM position.
The only games I know that might skirt that line are very like dungeon delvey games where like the point is that you're playing a combat sim, and a lot of times when I've seen like that exact philosophy into a game's rules, it's usually more board game than like tabletop game.
I don't know. There's a lot of games that have, like, I think Candela Obscura actually had something similar to this kind of written in. Fabula Ultima somewhat does as well, actually. Because the premise is supposed to be players need to have equal amounts of input into the storytelling as the GM.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of games that will write that, like, the GM or like the player is the one that comes up with the thing, and then it just needs to be okayed with the GM and everything like that. But like the GM being just another player is kind of just not how any game is currently designed, because the GM is still a position. So, you know, they can't be a player because someone needs to run the game. But I think the second half of this is more interesting, which is that the player should be adding as much story as the GM does. I think that's really good, and I think more games need stuff like this. But I think that tabletop is not... We haven't played with mechanics, and we haven't played with systems that do this well enough yet to really make players feel comfortable having input into the story. And what happens in Fabula Ultima, you have Fabula points. So the player can spend a Fabula point to like adjust a scene or make something happen in a scene. And what I found was, more often than not, the players just didn't feel the need or comfortable using their points to alter the scene, because the player has like a couple mindsets. Their first mindset is, I'm here to react to what the GM is doing. So, you know, whatever the mission is, whatever, like if an enemy comes out of a closet, I'm going to stab them, kind of thing. The player isn't thinking, I want to put an enemy in a closet, you know, which would be interesting as a game mechanic. And the players are also thinking of like, well, I don't want to mess up what the GM has planned, because the GM has a plan. When you're going to play tabletop with someone, as a player, you're not thinking about what you're going to do for the story today. You're just thinking like, I can't wait to see what happens today. You know, yeah. You come in with no plan. And so I think that the future of tabletop is going to have a lot more player input in narrative elements. But I feel like as a hobby, players are not ready yet to kind of take the reins on that kind of stuff. And as games are designed, we don't have enough systems that are easy enough or coherent enough to allow players to like have equal amounts of input. But if you've played in any like really good game, you know that the players definitely do as much storytelling as the GM does.
Yeah, there's so many times where a thing a player is did before the game, like building a character, will impact and shape the story of the game you're going to play. I think honestly, there's a handful of reasons with like narrative mechanics and players driving parts of the story. Because I think in our Fabula game, I was the most just willing to spend Fabula points and alter a scene. But the reason is because I have experience using that kind of system. It is just an inherently weird one when in playing other games, because I always had, though, the natural inclination of like, oh yeah, a big point of tabletop games is to use the tools in front of me to solve the problem.
Yeah.
So like what you are describing is the method I can solve it, and then I would just forget that I could alter the scene. I'd be like, oh shit, yeah right, I can just do this. It's the reason I think that the Star Wars version is just the best version of narrative mechanic, because like another issue that could pop up, especially for us playing very like structured Pathfinder like games, we like having these rules heavy things. Sometimes there's that feeling of like, not even I don't want to ruin the GM's plan. It's like, this kind of feels like cheating. If we have a problem and then I just like, yeah, hey GM, I solve it.
Yeah.
Give me the answer. Like that feels weird. Like I want to have the bit of like, well, let me solve it, but then that's a mechanic. So it's why I think like the Fabula system is a really kind of proto version of a mechanic I hope will start popping up in games going forward, because I think that is going to be the trend. But I think the Star Wars system being so regimented of like, here is a chart of like the level of effects these advantages and triumphs will give you. Like here is a bunch of just stock things that can happen. And if you have something else you want to do, you now know the range. One advantage can let you do stuff like this. Two advantages, you can do stuff like this. a
Yeah.
triumphant advantage, here's everything else. And so that is a really helpful tool for players and a GM, because it's now eventually, once you get that knowledge and that like muscle memory, it's now like, oh shit, I just know exactly what I can do with this. And it doesn't hit as far into like, oh, I got a narrative mechanic. I do more damage.
Yeah. And so I think it's one of those things where we'll start seeing this more and more, but I think it's going to be developed better and better. I need to check Cypher. I need to check Genesis, because I do think these systems lean more into that, because these are kind of like agnostic systems that don't have a setting along with them. Which is one of the reasons why I haven't really leaned into Genesis, because honestly, one of the things I'm interested in tabletop is the story of the game, being very narratively driven as I am. So when a game doesn't have like a world or a setting to like discover, explore, it makes it a lot harder. Where I know there's a lot of GMs out there who just love homebrewing and they just want to make their own stuff and everything like that. And it's something that I feel like when it comes to tabletop in general, if I was to say anything makes a good GM, it's a GM who buys into the game and the system more than anyone else. Now, granted, that can be a bad side, but when done correctly, it's great.
Like anything taken to its extreme, it can get a little like weird, to the same extent where if someone like if you had a GM that just didn't give a shit at all about the game or setting, or like got way too deep into the mechanical aspect of it to the point where it's like, this isn't an immersive like story experience now. I feel like I'm just number crunching with you for 2 hours.
So it's something where in the past I played in a game, only like a couple sessions, with this guy who's like a paid GM, right? The kind of individual who gets paid by people to run games for them. And I hung out with this guy a little bit. I talked to them a little bit because, you know, I'm into the hobby. I really enjoy this kind of stuff as well. And he had such weird criteria for what makes a good GM. Like one of his,
a bunch of just strange takes in general.
Yeah, one of his ideas was, you're not a good GM unless players have gotten married in one of your games.
Damn. Like I remember hearing that, like probably from you telling me that.
Yeah, I've said it before.
Like, man, it's gonna be I guess you're a bad GM only if I'm in the game, because I'm literally never going to do that.
Yeah.
I don't like the idea.
I guess in theory, technically I didn't have a player get married, but I did have a player who canonically made a relationship with a character for when we did a future version of that game, Scion actually. But
it's just like, I mean, it depends on the game, because like if it's a player like me who is uncomfortable with all forms of like tabletop romance, I think literally the only form I'd be comfortable with is if it's an in-game, in-character romance with my fiance. But even then, it then will only play into my uncomfortability of like expressing forms of affection and like PDA in front of other people. So that's just the me problem. But like, I refuse to flirt with any character piloted by a friend of mine. I find that weird. I can't separate it. I remember the moment I stopped taking a lot of his takes seriously, because he told me very seriously aside that weeb was a serious slur akin to the N-word.
Who?
Same paid GM you're talking about.
Did he?
Yeah, he told me that. He told me that the
No, are you thinking Sakura?
I'm thinking of him. Or are you talking about a different?
I'm talking a different guy.
Oh, okay. I'm talking about similar guy that also doesn't have the greatest GM style and has some wild takes.
Yeah, no, I'm talking about a different guy who he didn't even play D&D 5e at the time. He doesn't like D&D 5e actually. We played D&D 3.5.
Yeah, because like I think from what I remember with Sakura, like his style of GMing is just very like player against player kind of thing.
Um,
Just
kind of, yeah. I mean, the thing is just like he had this really bad problem of either gearing the scenes or like playing against the players, and then the players are about to lose, and then he gives the players a gimme that lets them win.
yeah,
And Sakura was not a good GM at all, and he was a
no,
weird man, a very weird man.
very strange.
He just was the man who was running D&D at our local store and had obviously a lot too much money to himself.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I feel like you can get a pretty nice framework on the type of person if they tell you seriously that like weeb is a slur and you should use otaku instead.
Yeah. Also, he was an unabashed fedora wearer. So
Yes, that's the other thing about it. I feel like the description of him that we're painting, you can immediately picture the guy.
Yeah. I gotta say though, he did help me out a lot. He gave me a lot of books for free, and he let me borrow his passes to get into like SoccerCon a couple times and other conventions. So he
I
was.
can't fault the fact that he brought it. He like had the D&D community like in this small area. He had it like running well.
So you know, like, I don't think he was a good GM. I don't think he was a good man, but I do think he did do some good stuff for me, and for those things, at least, I'm thankful. But well, the thing with that, Andrew, is though, is that I would like that in the core book that I'm getting, even though I know that's not the point of the Genesis system, because it's supposed to be an agnostic system. And even then, those splat books, from my general understanding, are not like the most in-depth. Like, they give you a broad overview. To be fair, though, that's a lot of tabletop, because let's be for real here. D&D 5e doesn't really have a lot of books about the actual setting. Most of the setting you get are from their various adventure paths that you have to read up through.
Or read one of the novels.
But regardless, like, despite being able to conform Genesis around these worlds, that's not what makes it interesting to me, because I think what makes a game interesting is when the game rules are designed to fit in a setting. So, you know.
Yeah, I could like the engine a lot, but and I can also not like Star Wars as a setting. But
Yeah.
like the part of Fantasy Flight Star Wars that does kind of hit really well is just how much playing the game makes you feel like you're in a Star Wars game.
Yeah.
There's a strong element of that, and like an engine can be as good as it can be, but I think there's a level of like, unless your GM is a world building obsessive, it can be a little tough to get into a thing like that, like a pure engine.
Yeah. And I don't feel like it's a really good thing to be like, if you buy all the books, then you'll really like it, kind of thing. It should just be, I mean, to be fair, I think Genesis probably is really good. If you're trying to sell me on setting stuff and you say there's like a bunch of books I have to buy to get into it, that's probably not the best way to do it.
I mean, if we could conform it to whatever, we could run a Warhammer.
We could just play in Anima's Gaia if we wanted to.
We could do that too. We could just be in Gaia. Like, I mean, that's a setting you're really familiar with. It'd be really easy.
Yeah.
Though I feel like that would be a good move, only because we'd be like, we could be playing Anima right now.
Yeah. So, you know, it's a fascinating subject overall, because tabletop is just so undefined and undefinable. Like, I shouldn't say undefined, because there's general understandings that, like, you roll dice, you talk in character, you try to tell a story while using the game rules, and all that kind of stuff. Like, there's a basic, like, shadow of what a tabletop is. But, like, what people enjoy about it, what people like about it, are so varied and different that I know people who love tabletop purely because of their GMs. And I know people who don't like tabletop because purely of their GMs.
Yeah.
Which is hard. It's hard for me to hear that from people because it just makes me be like, well, if I ran a game for you, you would like tabletop. It's just kind of like the idea is just like, oh, you don't like tacos, but if I made you my tacos, you know, you would like tacos.
And then, like, there's always the some degree where someone just inherently can't buy into it, like where they'd be like, yeah, I just don't like tacos. It's just I just like the anecdote. I just like the anecdote of my dad seriously explaining to me, like, because I had it was like a small heart to heart where I was asking him like his experience playing D&D the one time when he was like I think 16, 17, and he was telling me like how he doesn't think he'd vibe with it only because like he could not pass that barrier of we're a bunch of dorks in the basement like talking around a table. Like he couldn't get around that barrier. He had zero way to immerse himself because in his head he's like, if it's not like a thing I'm interacting with, a book, a screen, something like that, I can't be immersed because it's still me doing this. All right, fair enough. This is just not your type of hobby.
Yeah.
Like at least it purely wasn't like I like that anecdote because it's someone who can explain it like internally. They can explain their own thought process and come to the conclusion of like it is a me problem.
Yeah, and to be fair, I don't think tabletop is actually for everyone. Funny enough, I don't think tabletop is necessarily for a lot of people who really like tabletop, to be honest.
I just stand by a lot of times. I think like people need to figure out and be introspective of the question of like, do you like playing tabletop or do you like making OCs? Because like both are fine, but like making OCs completely fine if you want to do that. But is this just a way to have your OCs have like a framework rather than be a nebulous concept in your head? I think you need to be honest if that's your intention.
There's a lot of people like that who are just like, they just want their OCs to be cool and they want them to be like justified, so they make them in a game. But then the games don't make characters cool necessarily. It turns out if you want your character to actually be cool, you have to actually work at it.
Yeah, a lot of times, like, I mean, I admittedly do this. Like, when I make a character, I'm picturing them like near the end or like the midpoint of their journey.
Yeah,
where they're like, they can start doing the cool shit, and it's starting like to work up to it, and like, and yeah, it can be that issue where you have a thing in your head, you have your OC in your head, and then you getting forms of friction and like not able to immediately become that is now a turnoff.
Yeah,
because it's like, this is what I want to do. I mean, the answer, hey, just go play AI Dungeon.
Yeah.
Or like do an AI roleplay experience or something.
Or write a book, but.
Or that. I mean, the AI option's easier, which is why I'll suggest that one. Because yeah, like that's what it feels like. It feels like the people who are like, I have a bunch of OC ideas for writing stories or comics or whatever, but like I haven't written anything yet. I've just come up with a bunch of characters and some world building. It's like, okay. You like the world building character creation part. It's the attaching it to a rule set that requires certain things to occur. That's where the disconnect is.
Yeah. Well, I think there's also people on the opposite end where there's people who really, really, really just like tabletop because it's just honestly a more in-depth board game.
Yeah, that's also another one. Like, I mean, famously that was an issue with Critical Role Season 1, like early on. Like that is another bit of like which is where I'm talking about earlier where I say like the only games I've seen that do the like the GM is like a player role are the kind of war gamey dungeon delvey board games that are like but those ones it's like it's GM versus player.
Yeah.
It's like that type of game. Which is where I've seen it the most because I've seen a good few because a lot of those board games are just really cool vibes wise. But yeah, like some people just like that tactical board game vibe.
So, you know, and far be it from me to yuck anyone's yum. I don't think that there's a right way to play tabletop. So in some ways, there's not a definitive good GM. While I still think there's a definitive bad GM, but you know, I think that's just a lot of social contract stuff. A lot of, if your GM is taking you on their ride without any of your input, I don't think that's going to be good in any kind of setting. But it's something where I think what really makes a good GM is just the ones who can add their own special spice that cannot be replicated at any other table. Like, a lot of GMs are known for something, and yet none of them are really known for like the same type of things, maybe a same style, but not exactly the same, because I don't think I would necessarily compare Brendan Lee Mulligan's play style versus the Adventure Zone.
Oh yeah, that's Griffin McElroy.
Yeah. But where they were the GM? No, who was the GM?
Yeah, he was the GM.
Oh, okay.
There's a couple of like change seasons where they swap around GMs, but Griffin's the one who does it the most.
Yeah. While kind of having a same game style in a way, I don't think that what made them good was the same. Brennan's definitely like, he brings his own personality and his own uniqueness to his characters. And I didn't watch a lot of it Adventure Zone, but I know in Adventure Zone, it was a lot of like just rolling with whatever nonsense the players were going with and making it fun anyway.
There is it's one of the shows where it's like there's a lot of goofy fun stuff, at least in the first season of Adventure Zone. As it went on, it became more and more serious, which I think hits really hard. I think honestly the best thing they've done was their first season, because like it hit really well of let's take a bunch of inherent comedians and watch them slowly get invested in like a tabletop game.
Yeah.
Until the last bit was like actually emotionally like impactful. And later on they take it more seriously. But like that's the journey for Adventure Zone. I stopped listening a long while ago, but like yeah, the first season is the best example of like let's take a bunch of funny people, have them slowly start taking the story seriously.
Yeah.
But it's still a different style. It's like a very comedic style, but it is different.
Yeah. And it's something that's, it's hard to pinpoint what could you do, and like what could you replicate of these good GMs that you find online that could improve your game. Because if you really care about GMing, like I do, for instance, you are always wondering what you could be doing better, And I think it's been very interesting on my own journey, because I've always considered myself a good GM, and my players have always said I've been a good GM. Even though I've always asked like, hey, is there anything I could do? Could I run it any better? I don't really ask that anymore. Mostly just I kept getting pretty non-answers, really. But to no one, there's no one's fault. It's just it takes a special kind of person to always have critiques. I think some people are just happy to be there. But I feel like of recent years, I haven't been able to do as well as I have before. And and there's a few things I feel like could be the reason for that. But, honestly, I think what it really is, what made the anima games really good was it was a system that I had complete mastery of, complete control over, and I could do interesting things for it, and I was homebrewing stuff all the time for it, just because it's the system is granular enough where there's so many rule sets that I can kind of just do anything with it. It's the same benefit that the players get, honestly, where you can make any kind of character. Well, I can make any kind of NPC using a lot of the systems in the game, and magic items, are something that I didn't do a lot there then, and I'll probably be doing a lot more now. But what made anima, I really think it was my project. I was telling the story of anima using its setting, and the players are always kind of stepping into some effect that's going to affect the world at large. Usually I incorporate the players into some of the things that were going to happen in the setting anyway, and give them their own little piece. And I think I owned Anima. That was what made it good. I owned it. I owned the story, the world story. I owned the characters. I owned how the game was run, because we didn't play it how the game was intended to be run. And
It's like, on top of that complete kind of control over it, the pace of which we had it to, where like it had that like really freeing experience where it felt like an adventure would take as long as like the players, well, like as long as we stopped fucking around and doing other things in character, like never full derailing. I don't think we ever did that.
yeah.
But like some other times we like took our time with stuff and like really just got sunk into it. And it's that level of pace of just a lot of pure roleplay players where you're like, yeah, dang, these characters have been talking for like 3 hours. Like it's just been a 3-hour session so far of just everyone talking at each other. No dice have been rolling. There's just something special about like getting invested into that. But then, yeah, man, like genuinely, it's the part that in the future I just desperately want to play Sebastian role playing at like Arbiter Myra now. Like that part is so appealing to me. Like I said, I have such a soft spot for like that type of thing. Our big Rosencrantz arc, one of the aspects that was so fun is how us crossing over the campaign and like switching characters around, like genuinely was so fun because it promoted character art.
Yeah.
I had a whole a whole aspect of my character. He had a big awakening because the other party had a character who would dig in and know how to counter his like own defenses for it. How to like, hey, the thing you're saying, I don't think you believe it. And like, yeah, damn, she was right. So like that's the fun of it. It's just the story can go in such really interesting ways when like you as the GM have such control over it.
Yeah. And we have another friend who's a GM, and I've heard amazing things about his world and his setting and everything like that. And he's done the same thing with D&D 5e.
Yeah, it's the only form of 5th edition I enjoy. He's done a lot of intense work for building this world to the point where at some points I'm like, bro, you're going so far with this. Where he's like, yeah, I'm studying like Roman, like how the roads and like road system was built, how the economy worked through that transportation, so I can learn better ways to implement this in my world. It's like, damn, bro, that's crazy. You're thinking about what types of rocks and shit exist in this area.
Yeah,
And
and
like the
it's
fun of that is having that kind of game where like we could be in this world for fucking years.
and I think a lot of this has just kind of just been my journey as a GM, because when I started GMing, I didn't play the same system until we hit Scion. And well, we played a little bit of Exalted, but we did Scion. And I played lots of the World of Darkness games. I ran Scion, Exalted. I ran D&D 4 a little bit. And I played in Deadlands. I never really got to run Deadlands too much. I did a one shot, and I did like a short campaign for Deadlands. Deadlands is a really fun game. I miss that game a lot too. And then I played Scion, and we played that for like 4 or 5 years. And then I played Anima, and I played Anima for like 7 years, 8 years, probably longer actually overall, like 11 years. And then we went into this new arc where it's like I played some D&D 5e, played a good amount of that. Then went to Pathfinder 2nd Edition, played a good amount of that. And then kind of just jumped around, played a bunch of other systems. I mean, you can check out the channel. You can check out the live tab. We've played a lot of different games in the life of this channel, at least the tabletop part of the channel anyway, in the last 3-4 years. And it's like, that's all well and good. But if I wanted to have the same experience in Anima that I wanted to have, like, I have to find a game that I want to dedicate a lot of time to generate that kind of experience again. And if it turns into Anima again, oh well, you know.
like I think it's the conversation we had when we were really coming to terms like with doing this. Uh, I think your point of like the break away and playing a bunch of different games. I think now we can go into this, especially on your end. You can have the tools to really like get going with this thing and make Anima less of a fucking pain to run, because you just have more experience with different types of games, like in that stronger aspect in the last couple of years. And now I think if we design Anima 1.5,
Yeah.
that's our perfect version of Anima. Like, man, that's gonna hit so hard.
Which would be hilarious and sad at the same time, because I went and started designing my own narrative crunch game, and then turns out,
just did Anima.
And then just turns out it's just like, push into garbage can and just pick up the Anima book again and start changing the writing.
They made such good bones. The bones are so good.
Well, I think just what the game does really well is there's just a lot of ways to play the game.
Genuinely, it's so fun.
And
it's so fun to have a game where you can like come up with a concept and be like, how can I achieve this? Oh, there's a lot of really cool ways. Okay.
Yeah. Because I can tell you, I love Pathfinder 2nd Edition. I can't make Goku in Pathfinder 2nd Edition. But in Pathfinder, in Anima, I can play Goku. I can have a character who ascends and gets transforms into different forms and gets stronger and stronger, and can shoot energy beams and can have instant transmission and can have all kinds of things like that. And
I am designing a wizard character with not touching any magic, and it's more like I am summoning the raw cosmic events in space. I know the math of why these things occur in nature, so I can now replicate it. And I'm doing it in a really sick way. I don't think I can do that as easily in a lot of other games.
Yeah. And I mean, in Anima's defense, the game gives you the freedom to make anything. If you wanted a character who was equally good at all skills, you could do it. You couldn't do them and any of them really well, but you could do it. And so the game, because of its freedom, you are free to make bad characters.
That is like the full problem. Like one of many problems of the system. It's just the power disparity can be very bad.
Yeah. And there are some things in the game that are just broken that need to be fixed.
Yeah. I am happy in the idea that Arthur will never be as strong as he was in the game.
Yeah.
I'm happy about that.
There's definitely some key points I'm definitely going to hit and to make better, but and that's the thing, right? Playing a lot of different TTRPGs is something I recommend everyone do. And to be fair, we're going to continue playing some other games, but maybe not as frequently, or at the very least, we'll be having a much stronger game to come back to, which was going to be Pathfinder 2e. I don't know what it was with me in Pathfinder 2e. I think it was just that the game, I think what it was, I love Pathfinder 2e, and I would say it probably still my favorite game system, but it might just be Anima again. Anima might have just bypassed it recently. But what it was that Pathfinder didn't offer me the narrative character building that I really liked in Anima. Like there was just choices you can make when making characters in Anima that just made for more interesting characters.
Like, I love the mechanics of Pathfinder. It's such a mechanically fun game to play. Like, I'd be sad if we never played Pathfinder again and only played Anima.
Yeah.
I love Anima. It's like, well, it's always that beat when it comes to playing a variety like tabletop. It's just like, I love this game. This game is my favorite, but the idea of never playing other games again is still sad.
Yeah, and we won't only play Anima.
Exactly. Well, that's not us. We wouldn't do that.
Yeah, and I enjoy the hobby too much to do that. But it's interesting to have this journey as a GM of just like, I hit my prime, and then it felt like we tried a bunch of games and I just wasn't getting that same buzz that I was getting before. And I think that's not a bad thing. I think like if any of you work out, I'm sure you understand the process. You go to the gym, you wreck yourself, and you spend the next few months constantly sore, constantly wobbly, constantly like, I would pick this up, but man, it'll make my arms hurt.
Yeah.
And then eventually you don't hurt as much after working out, and eventually you're just stronger and stronger and stronger. And you know, it's just that kind of same thing of playing other games may have made me weaker in the short term, but will make me stronger in the long term. And I think it's something that like a lot of GMs should try out new games, just because different games hit different mechanics differently. And I think that's what honestly is going to make like me running anima in games my players are familiar with better and better. Like honestly, if we played Legend of the Five Rings again, I think honestly I would run it much better, because now I've played more games that have similar systems to what was kind of janky with it before.
Yeah, I think it would operate better. I'd still be sad the whole time, but I'd just play a cool ass samurai man.
And you know, we'll probably check out Genesis. Maybe Genesis will be like the same but different, you know. And I definitely think that tabletop as a general hobby is something that the experience you make as a GM is purely unique to you. The way you tell your stories, the way you tell your run your NPCs, the way you mold the game to your players, how you do that, the kind of genres that you are better at telling at versus others. Like, I'm sure there's a GM out there who's crazy good at doing horror, which I think is a very difficult type of GMing to do, because horror is so hard to do when you don't have a lot of visual or audio aids to like go along with it.
It requires a lot of like buy-in of the players and the ability to like get a really immersed and picture everything. It can be a perfect storm, and then there can just be a GM that can help push people better into that camp who maybe like struggle getting fully immersed, and they just like, oh shit, I'm getting like so much more immersed now. They're
Yeah.
so good at it. It is a tough skill. I agree. I think that's like the hardest form of tabletop.
And you know, there's just tables out there who just want a really good beer and pretzels TTRPG where they just role play as a bunch of goobers, and their GM really leans into it and makes them have the funnest time that they can with it, you know. And that table would not enjoy a Matt Mercer style GM, which is super obvious. If anyone hasn't watched it yet, watching the was it Tabletop on a Bus or Dimension 20 on a Bus?
On a bus.
On a bus. That really showed that Matt Mercer is not designed for those kind of games.
I love that his immediate playing it, like way of playing into the bit, is to try to narratively justify everything going on. Like,
to be fair, he played the role of the straight man in that situation.
Like he knew, like they definitely were coached exactly. Let's make how to make this as funny as possible. Like play up Brennan, like being upset at it because Brennan monologue. Him trying to like, do I have this affinity, this stat affinity? Maybe we're doing this. Like it's exactly the type of guy he is, and it plays it really well.
Yeah.
Man, if only it got greenlit for a
season. Yeah.
I love that entire Game Changer episode. That was really funny. And like the other bit where it's just like because did you see the whole episode of that or just the clip of On a Bus?
Just the clip of On a Bus.
Yeah, the whole premise of it is they had like a budget. Each like contestant had $10,000 to put towards videos that would be put on Dropout, and whichever video did the best like virally on TikTok, Twitter, all that would win the game. And like the one that got like right at the end was We have a perfect idea. We need funding for a video of Brennan Lee Mulligan quitting Dropout and quitting Dimension 20.
Oh, right. I did hear that. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a real website, and it's just a really funny video of him being like, "I'm going to make shoes for American Girl dolls."
Yeah.
Like in the mountains. Like, it's a great episode. That's one of my favorites.
It's so bizarre to me how many people believed that video, by the way.
Because it's so blatant. Like, there's so many points where it's like, this is a joke. Like,
Yeah.
I think the line of Brennan being like, I told myself I would cry. I'm not. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not upset about that or something.
It shows the power of hearsay, because a lot of people obviously didn't watch that video, but
it just means there's a second Dropout member that if you search their name, it says fired afterwards.
Yeah.
Zach Oyama, if you search his name, it says fired because of a live stream prank Sam Reich did a long time ago in their So College Humor, where he just like had a live chat picking different reasons why he has to fire Zach Oyama.
Yeah.
But if you Google Zach Oyama, one of the first results is fired.
Yeah. So, like, I think it's really fascinating because there is obviously, for every person out here, every person watching this video, every person who's watched Tabletop, every person watching YouTube even, there's probably a GM out there who has a style that's very similar to what you would enjoy the most to play in. And it makes Tabletop so flexible and so interesting because, like, what I find fun about Tabletop is the real narrative roleplay gamey aspects of it, where you can tell a fun story and have game mechanics that you can really lean into and play with. And as evidenced by the video game age, which, by the way, at one point in time, people didn't think that video games were generally for everyone. And now look at the world. Everyone's playing video games. Some of the biggest events of the year are game awards or game shows. And it's proof that people love games. And so, like, for TTRPGs, they're just a game in a different way. And I feel like a lot of people, a good number of people, would enjoy TTRPGs. And with the different kinds of people out there, there's a GM who probably can run a game, and there's probably a game out there that you would enjoy being in so much.
Like, the biggest hurdle is just knowing people.
Yeah.
And then, like, knowing the person that would run the type of game you enjoy. Because, like, yeah, it's sadly, like, sometimes making new friends and stuff, it's tough. It's tough to just find people and get yourself in a group. Like, it's a really real possibility and reality for people. Where it's like, yeah, I know, like, one GM in my area that I'm buddies with, and he's, like, a very war gamer type, and I will kind of just want to run a narrative.
Yeah. I can tell y'all from experience, I've curated my friend group to be all TTRPG nerds. So
yep, it's lucky. Like, early on, I said, like, the fun I get out of Tabletop is the idea that I could play a realistic, believable person in the world the GM made. So I was molded. I was ready from the start to join your shit.
Yeah, my wife also loves TTRPGs. It's super funny because my wife, we have a baby, and it's been better for one of us to be watching the baby rather than to run games or play games together, which has been sad, but it's just what it is when you have a baby. We're kind of getting to a point now where we're like, okay, watching the baby and doing some TTRPG, it might not be the optimal experience, but at least it's something. I've been watching the baby while we've been running in her game for Pathfinder on the weekends. And she was like, I kind of want to play, but I don't know. She wasn't really interested in joining the Cosmere. And then I mentioned Anima, and she's like, we're playing Anima?
Yeah.
She was right there, like, oh, I see. We're going to be playing Anima? Okay, I'm playing.
Yeah, it hits. Like, honestly, I think the biggest thing that'll happen in the future, in the next few years, is essentially finding a way to implement a small child into the game in the same way of, like, handing the dead controller to your little brother, little sister, that kind of vibe, where it's just like, yeah, you're involved, like, we're learning, we're bringing you in, you're not getting the entire experience because you're fucking 4 years old. It's like, you just won't understand, but, like, playing into the idea, playing into that. It's like, yeah, it's how you get a kid really invested into something. I mean, imagination play is just a really important part for a child.
Yeah.
So lucky two tabletop nerds are gonna be your parents.
Yeah, that's another strategy I've seen some people do. They just breed their own players for their games.
I genuinely think that will be the thing that gets me the DM. I think
Yeah.
it'll be me having children and like being like, fine, because you're my kid, I will come up with a story and like run a game for you guys.
Yeah, and it's gonna be so magical because they don't have any way of judging the experience. It's just gonna be the coolest thing ever. You're gonna describe things and they're gonna see it so vividly in their mind because they've just not had they don't have all the stuff rumbling around in our own brains that you get as you get older, you know.
I'm not gonna get a 5-year-old being like, I think you could have narrated that better, like Matthew Mercer. Like, I don't think they're gonna do that.
You're gonna be like, this unicorn has purple hair, and they're just gonna be like, oh, whoa! I never even thought of a unicorn having purple hair before. That's so cool.
Purple hair, whoa! Not like, that's a bit immersion breaking.
Yeah.
Like,
or just be like, okay, purple hair, that's cool. I've seen characters with purple hair before. You know.
I like the idea of just a kid being a born and raised like rules lawyer, annoying tabletop head, just like from birth, like somehow they're just that worst type of player.
Just a kid who's just too smart for their own good. Just
they
learns.
go into Critical Role live chat. They're trying to write backseat gaming, but they can't spell yet, so it's just kind of gibberish.
Yeah. The worst thing that happened to a parent ever. Their child is a genius, but for their favorite hobby. So it's just like you love chess. You play a bunch of chess, but then you play with your child and they just start trumping you one day at like 8, and you're just like, well, I can never play chess again. Because while I enjoy chess, my child takes it way too seriously for me.
Yeah.
Have the actual child GM.
That'd be so funny. Maybe that's the strat. Maybe I GM, but I mold one of my children in a social experiment to become a forever GM. So we just have access to another GM in case of like multiple off days for people.
You just name them Gregory Mathers, whatever your last name is, and just be like, just nickname him GM.
That's a great idea. They got to have a name like that works really well. So in like, I don't know, 25, 30 years, they can have a podcast. And then then we have as like it's being done properly. So now we have a 12-year-old that, say for example, you guys want to play, but oh no, it's for the Sunday game. Suzanne is not feeling great. Well, come hire this 12-year-old because it turns out they're really good at GMing.
Yeah.
Like, that's the plan. That's the strat. I'll tell my fiance about that. I know how much they love me gaming social experiments with our future children.
Yeah. I honestly, I feel like my kids are inevitably going to be tabletop players. I don't think there's any other future where they aren't. It's just because literally everyone I run games for eventually just gets super into tabletop at some point.
Literally the only version I can see is either they're going to love tabletop or they're going to like it. They're going to be like, yeah, it's fun.
Yeah.
That's the most extent I can see. I don't think they're going to come away hating it.
I've never had a player I've ever run for like tabletop. They've always loved it. It always turns into that.
Oh yeah, 100%. It's just the thing of like, I think there's an inherent thing with a kid to push back on what their parents enjoy. Sometimes it sticks, sometimes it doesn't. Because I know I did that a lot, where like all my parents' favorite bands I hated growing up, and now like, no, they're actually good. Except the Killers, they're dog shit. Mr. Brightside is a god awful song. But like I can see like a kid in that typical like no phase of being like just pushing back at the idea of tabletop, but I don't see a reality where your kids specifically any of them hate tabletop. The worst case scenario is that they're like, yeah, it's fun.
Yeah, honestly, I don't even see that.
Extreme. I think it's significantly more likely that they're going to love tabletop. It is purely like worst case scenario.
which is good. I'm planning on having at least 2, maybe 3. So
That's a party.
yeah, it's a party. Yeah, them plus mom. That's a whole group right there.
What do you need? 3 to 4.
Yeah. It's so interesting, and I'm so excited for the future with them, because there's going to just be different tabletop games out at that point. And I actually, that's a very interesting thought. What is tabletop going to look like in like 10 years?
We're going to be playing tabletop with fucking holograms in 15 years, bro.
Full VR tabletop.
Yeah, AR tabletop. We're going to be like rolling holographic dice wearing just glasses.
But really, in a more serious way, like, there's no way D&D 2024 is still like the top rated TTRPG at that time.
Yeah, like, that is a funny idea. How long do you think D&D will stay in that like zeitgeist? Will they have to make a new edition, like bite the bullet and do something new, or will they try their damnedest to stay the exact fucking same?
I have no idea. Because, like, honestly, in my opinion, D&D's, or Wizards of the Coast rather, their best option is to get a 6e going and to tune it up, but keep a lot of the same fun and jank that they've, obviously built their game on. The news trend at the time will be on a bus. Pure chaos. And if they release a 6e and it does really good and it fixes a lot of the same things up, like, there's so many people who are so D&D pilled that when an actually good D&D comes out, that would probably like revitalize the D&D scene pretty heavily. And then they probably claim the title again. But like, from what we've seen from how D&D has been run, I just don't see that happening, or at least not in any real way. It just feels like they're just going to monopoly it, where they're just going to have different, that's probably what they're going to do. They're probably just going to get a bunch of IPs and make their own D&D games, essentially, based on those IPs. And that's what their vision of the future is. Like, all right, we got the base rules, never change them. We're just going to make Rick and Morty's D&D, which they already did. So
the one that's so sad to me, the
Adventure Time one.
The really interesting Adventure Time game that turned into D&D.
Yeah. So, like,
we were so close to having a cartoon game, like a cartoon tabletop game with cartoon logic. It's like, nope, man.
So it's like, what? Like, in 10 years, like, I mean, if I look at it very seriously, I think what it's going to be is it's going to be like the tabletop pile, rather, where D&D is still played. People are still going to enjoy D&D, but now more people are talking about Daggerheart, more people are talking about Pathfinder, and like, it's like you got your core games, and then you have all the sub games, and then the sub games and the sub games, below those. And I think that's generally what it's going to be, where tabletop's just going to kind of become this amorphous, like, oh yeah, there's tabletop. You can play, whatever game. If you want something really easy to get into, you play D&D 5e. If you want something a little bit more challenging, maybe you play Pathfinder, or maybe if you really want to get into like the narrative side of things, you do Daggerheart, or maybe, Blades in the Dark or something like that. I don't think there's going to be like a king anymore.
No, I don't think so. Like, unless the only reason why that wouldn't is if we get a D&D 6th edition and it absolutely slaps.
Yeah. Or is
like,
at least good. Like, doesn't have to be amazing, just good.
If it's something that like is what people like 5th edition for, but functions and like has a lot of better aspects of it, I think we can all I would put money on the fact that in a decade we're gonna have at least an announcement for Pathfinder 3rd edition. Like, I think we'd be getting a new edition in that. But it's also the aspect of just, I think, how things are going to develop with the internet going forward. Because, like, we're in that very modern era with, like, YouTube and streaming and everything. So if someone wants to play D&D 5th edition, there's still so many resources online to play it.
Yeah.
Even if there's a 6e, I don't think 5th edition will leave like the public zeitgeist for a long time.
I don't know about that. I think D&D is D&D. That's how a lot of people see it anyway. A lot of people aren't like a lot of people who aren't tabletop nerds just call D&D D&D. They don't say 5e necessarily.
Yeah, they 100% do. I still think if they do come out with a 6th edition D&D, I think it's going to take a decent bit of time for 5th edition to stop being like, I think people are going to keep 5th edition alive like for themselves.
I mean, yeah, just the same way that 3.5 has been kept alive, because there is a strong 3.5 scene actually.
Oh yeah, there 100% is. Like, I if anything, I think it'd be a little bit bigger than 3.5. Like the community. After a while goes on, I think eventually it'll like start falling out. I just think 5e specifically in like 2024, I guess, is going to have a stronger staying power than other games we've seen. But eventually it will fade out because I think they do need to make a 6th edition to keep this brand alive.
Yeah, I don't know. It's because honestly, like the D&D scene has been so lukewarm. Like I try my best to stay tapped into the tabletop scene. And before, like in the last couple of years, whenever I'm looking up things, tons of D&D videos show up on my feed, and I see D&D player channels talking about whatever D&D thing is going on, whatever new build, another D&D horror story, all that kind of stuff. But that stuff has not been getting filtered to me as much anymore, and now it's a lot more other games. Like, oh, is this game interesting? Oh, is this game, like the talk of the town right now has been Daggerheart. Some channels have been talking about Drawsteel a little bit, and I sadly haven't seen a lot of channels talking about Cosmere all too much, sadly.
No, like sad. It's unsurprising. I think the most likely thing with Cosmere RPG is that it makes enough money for its audience to keep making it. It's not going to be like a big thing. It's going to be if anything, like it'll be a big enough collector's item for tabletop collectors and Cosmere heads, but it's going to live long enough to get a bunch of expansions and then probably fade.
Yeah, I think it'll just be like the Star Wars TTRPG.
Yeah. The Star Wars TTRPG had a lot of expansions. Eventually it fades. Like I think if it gets to that point, everything's done, and there's a big enough gap in between like the next thing for Cosmere, like I would be surprised with how long it's going to take for Cosmere RPG to really dig into like the next era of Stormlight Archive.
Yeah.
Because like that's going to be, I think it's going to start being a thing in like 2030. I don't think the game has that much legs. I think it's going to have enough to do what's in the Cosmere right now.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see with Mistborn. I think Mistborn's hype is going to carry it on to World Hoppers, I think is the next system they're doing after that, or at least the next like core book.
Yeah, because then it's going to be little expansions for Elantris and Warbreaker.
Yeah.
World Hoppers like going to be the at least in their time scale, it's the last big one. Because like the two worlds that are like the most impactful is Roshar and Scadrial.
Right. So, I think we are, I don't know, it's just, it's so bizarre to me because I've honestly had a pretty good finger on the pulse and I've been pretty accurate when it comes to my assessment of the TTRPG scene up until this year. And now, I just don't know, really. It's so strange because, the funny thing is, Pathfinder 2nd Edition, I feel like it's entering into a lukewarm phase because Pathfinder 2nd Edition was huge when it was really coming out and getting the ball rolling, because right during COVID, right after COVID, we were getting new books, we were really getting to feel the system and all it has, we were getting really cool things. They're oh, Pathfinder 2nd Edition, this is a really, really good game. And then we had the War of Immortals come out to a kind of a lukewarm reception, and then we've had some of the Tian Sha stuff come out too, somewhat of a lukewarm reception. Like, people
Seems like
still
it's
like
a
it
little better.
a little bit better. Battle Cry, honestly, was kind of okay. Was not as crazy. My channel, is usually like a really good rubric for like how some of the bigger books have come out. The last big book that came out that like my channel did really well on, and I think a lot of channels did, was the remaster. And then after that, it's just been, it's like, it's a good game, and a lot of the stuff they're coming out with is good. I do think the new classes are good and everything like that, but I don't know. People just aren't hyped for it like they used to. And I think Pathfinder is going to consistently be that. It's going to be a pretty like good, warm kind of game, but it's not going to have those spikes of like interests that some of the other games are going to have. And it might just be because they come out with so much stuff that people just don't have a chance to play it all, to be fair.
Like, it also, I think, doesn't help. A lot of the public online perception of Pathfinder can be a little iffy.
Yeah.
Because, like, I mean, we get it enough, too, where we see a large subsection of Pathfinder certainly likes talking about the concept of playing Pathfinder more than I believe they play the game. Because it's a lot of very annoying number crunch theory crafting to the expense of like people having fun. So you can do it in a fun way. You can do it in a way like the Pathfinder Reddit is kind of stereotyped as.
And the thing with mini tabletop, like something I've noticed is a lot of my Cosmere videos have been actually doing better and better as time has gone on, because more and more people are discovering Cosmere, which is good. I think it's something that is, inherent with tabletop. It's a kind of a slow scene in general. It kind of moves like molasses sometimes, just because, unless there's an OGL or Daggerheart situation, new games coming to the foray, people need to try them out, play the games, give the reviews, and it'll take several months after a game releases before you even hear about them. We didn't even hear about Fabula Ultima for like a year after it came out, actually, which is crazy. And I honestly, I don't know. I used to chalk it up to before as like Pathfinder was just not D&D, and so it's always going to get, the second most views of anything. But Daggerheart coming out and with like this new scene coming in with a bunch of other games, like, it seems to me that there's a lot of other people who they like Pathfinder, but it's not necessarily throwing anything that new that people are getting hyped about it, And I think that's just a problem of the system is so well balanced that's just like, oh, cool, new classes came out. They're okay, they're cool, they do some interesting things, nothing crazy, nothing that's gonna make you be like, oh, I gotta play this necessarily, unless you're really into something like the Commander.
Yeah, actually, I'm thinking about it because like I think we could probably see, and I'd love to see it, a little bit of a resurgence of White Wolf stuff. Because like White Wolf is now like they got control of their own shit again. There's a new vampire book that's going to come out like soon, I think, called In Memoriam. It's like specifically a book giving some new stuff like lore rules, but like really covering like older vampires. I think eventually we're probably going to see a Mage 5th edition. But they have control of their own stuff now, and then with the game, that's really clearly bringing a lot of eyes on like the tabletop again. I mean, by way of, there are two things that are pulling a lot of people to my channel, and it's Bloodlines 2 coming out in a month, and month, and there's a really popular Crusader Kings 3 mod for World of Darkness. Those, like, there's a lot of things in World of Darkness that are like people are looking at it and being like, oh shit, this is actually really cool. And I think it seems like in the back end they're working on more tabletop stuff.
Yeah,
I can see that. I don't think it's ever going to be like massive. I think it'll always be like an undercurrent, and largely from what I know, it seems like it's the largest community for World of Darkness is LARP.
Yeah.
But I think we're gonna get more stuff from them.
Yeah, honestly, I think, okay, I had a brilliant thought. I think tabletop is really going to be formed by the decisions made by tabletop, like YouTube channels and stuff like that. Considering now we're getting to the point where a lot of their content is becoming somewhat aged, where, you know, you watched Critical Role campaigns 1 and 2, and I think 3 probably was not as hyped as they would have liked. And so what they're going to do, like bringing in Brennan to kind of mix things up and to kind of save Matt Mercer from some burnout, and just the idea that, like, these are companies, they get money essentially from drawing public attention. So whatever they do to draw people's attention in, I think is going to really reflect what's going to happen in the tabletop scene. And I think everyone was expecting Critical Role to switch to Daggerheart, and that got a lot of people interested in the idea of jumping off of D&D, which kind of caused Daggerheart to really explode. And I think what brought a lot of people's attention to games like Drawsteel and like Cosmere. And then going back to D&D kind of threw a wrench in that, which is very unfortunate. But again, we already talked about how they probably would profit from that more anyway. But what I think is, like, whatever they're going to do to draw attention, like, maybe they will try out new games, you know? Like, I could definitely see Brennan trying out, like, something crazy like Wildsea.
I mean, I think that it'd be right up his alley, but the only reason I can see him not doing it, like, right away is because the Cloudbreaker campaign is very Cloudsea, like, just in vibe.
Yeah.
But I mean, they've already tried, like, the most extent of they've done is they've played Kids on Bikes.
Yeah.
Or Kids on Brooms, which is an offshoot of Kids on Bikes.
Yeah.
And that's powered by the Apocalypse, right?
No, but I think it takes a lot of the same systems.
Yeah, it's that, like, you know, it's one of those rules light engines. Like, it has the same dice system as, like, Blades in the Dark.
Yeah.
But I know it's one of those, like, different things. I can at least see the large bit of the tone setter, because of what you're gonna do as a business is you're gonna track, like, what things will be successful, what will profit. And if the market starts shifting to variety stuff, I can see it happening. I also see there being a legitimate aspect of we just have really important and well-produced, like, indie games that are gonna start coming out for like tabletop, because we already have a lot of, like, more indie titles that are doing super well. I think Lancer's the best example of it.
Yeah. Of,
like, a really well done version of that, and new designers that are going to be coming in. I can see a lot of them being influenced by a lot of newer games that are coming out, and so we're going to get that development of design principles. I can see a big trend that I hope it's going to be a good trend and, like, stick around. I like the idea of narrative design, narrative mechanics being slowly iterated on as more games come out. I think it's I think that's another big indicator on where it'll go. I think it's going to be how much can certain designs be iterated on and keep things fresh. Because if a lot of games started coming out and being like, oh, we're like Daggerheart guys, or oh, we're the D&D successor, if that keeps happening for a good while, I think that'll bode a little poorly. We're gonna get a lot of burnout for, like, can we get something that's not like D&D, please?
I mean, we're kind of already in that, but which is why I brought this up, because I do feel like using D&D as a big like RP channel nowadays, live play channel nowadays, is not the same drawing power that it used to have. And I think this we'll see with Legends of Adventures, because they are doing a Daggerheart, like, short, like, 3-sessioner, I think. And with Brennan Lee Mulligan kind of getting mixed in with Dimension 20 and, like, Critical Role coming together is a very interesting, like, mix of the powerhouses of the tabletop scene. And I feel like whatever they do, whatever they run, is going to become a lot more influential. And since D&D doesn't really seem to have the same drawing power it has anymore, I think what they're going to do is novelty, because that's usually what companies do after like the golden goose stops laying its eggs is they shift to a more novelty scene to like draw people in with, oh, this is new, this is crazy, and everything like that. And like I think those companies are in a really good spot right now to like bring in a wild TTRPG like Wild Sea, like I mentioned before, that players are like, wait, there's games like that? Guys, have you seen this new video that Dimension 20 put out where they tried this new game? Like, they're on boats with chainsaws and stuff like that. Where it still kind of matches the zaniness that is drawing people currently, like, you know, everything Dimension 20 does or everything Legends of Adventurous does. But now that the system isn't necessarily having that same draw power, like, they can do the same things they're doing, but with variety games to bring that much new interest, because I feel like people in the tabletop scene are starting to look for new games because D&D 2024 didn't do anything new.
Yeah, honestly, I think that if this is the bad future, one I hope doesn't come to pass, even though I kind of selfishly gain from it. 'Cause I think Evantris at least is one of the few times with an actual play where the draw of it isn't the game. The draw is like the people and like what they're doing. Because having watched a decent chunk of Evantris stuff, they don't fucking play this game.
Yeah.
Really. Like, there's really not much to it. It is a lot of improv stuff, and like the times they cut it down, which does, like, obviously it's going to do better than the actual like live stream. It's cutting out like the gameplay of it. And so I think Evantris is like the one example of they could play whatever the fuck they wanted, and I think it would still draw people in. And like I think the Daggerheart one will be a good test to see, like, is the fact like, oh, they're playing D&D even though they're not like rolling dice, really, does it matter? Will it impact like their show? I would selfishly gain from more shows like Evantris because it's the one actual play I really like, because it's not D&D. It's just people being funny for a while. I don't want that to happen because I think that there's a lot of good that can come of it where people are exposed to new cool games. Like if Dimension 20 started doing like other games and then was pretty vocal about what they were playing, because they're pretty vocal on like the modifications and stuff they do in the after show.
Yeah.
The adventuring party. But like other than that, if they were just vocal about like, oh, we're playing Pathfinder and here's like this stuff, I think it'll do good for people who are paying attention to the rules, being like, huh, this game sounds pretty interesting.
Though it does make me think there's going to be a proclivity towards, you know, more rules light kind of games, or at least less crunchy kind of games. Something that's easy to like just do stuff on the fly.
You know, there's the part of me that if I was running a production, a lot rules light just is the more preferable option, because like, there's so many better things you can do, and the worst aspect of some tabletop games is just rule hunting, and that part will suck. That takes time. Then there's the other aspect that at least I would go into making a production of, oh man, if I was doing a big high budget Dimension 20, like let's play Pathfinder 2e, oh, the audience for it would be so fucking annoying with like, you got this rule wrong, you got this rule wrong. Let's play a game with no rules so they shut up.
Right. I mean, I think that's some of the benefit of the D&D stuff is those comments have become less and less common because it's obvious they're not playing just straight D&D. They still happen though, I know for sure. But
I mean, I remember more recently watching season 1 of Fantasy High again when like season 3 was coming out. And I remember even I was like, oh, that's a mistake. That's not how the D&D rule works. Do I care? No, because I'm an adult. Like I don't really give a shit. But the other funny part was just the fact where Brennan kept saying Pathfinder terminology, and I was like, I know what you are. Yeah. You said reflex save.
Yeah. But see, the thing is, right? Because I know if we played enough Anima, and I had a good enough like grasp on it and everything, like we could do a thing where we could make Anima seem really, really cool and really, really fun and not super like rule, you know, digging into the rules too much, because what the players can say they can do just sound insane. and will probably make people interested, you know?
Yeah.
Like, someone just be like, all right, so I form my key guns, and I load them up with special rounds that explode in a 5-foot area every time I shoot them, you know? So I'm just going to start shooting all these guys in this area, and every time I hit one of them, I'm going to hit some of the other ones too. And people are going to be like, that sounds sick, you know? And you don't have to get super into the nitty-gritty rules of it. All you have to do is just cut out all the math parts, and boom, you make a game look interesting without necessarily worrying about rule arbitration. Because, like, at the end of the day, like, Anima's most difficult part is fractional math.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
you don't have, but one of the benefits of Anima is you don't actually necessarily have to look into the rules as much, because there's not a lot of like conflicting rule sets. Like Pathfinder can be this way, because like, oh, what does this condition do? What does this condition do? Like, if I ask my players, what's a condition in Anima? I think most of you don't even know that there's conditions in Anima.
I know that there are conditions in Anima. I couldn't name you what they are.
Could you name one?
Like, no, but I know they exist. Like, there's stuff that'll be like, oh, you have a thing that makes your attack or your defenses lower. Yeah, that's the thing about Anima. You can make it look really sick, but then like if you're working to make it look good, it's cutting out the parts like, oh yeah, let me summon my guns and like shoot 7 times in a row. It sounds sick, and then you start rolling the D100 like repeatedly. It's
yeah.
like, oh Jesus, this is a lot. There's a lot of just individual math we're doing.
It's not exhausted as fatigued, but you're doing very good, Devin.
Like, yeah, because I know there was one of those. I was probably thinking of fatigue, but I don't know. Could I tell you what it does? No. I know.
Yeah.
Probably...
And we played a lot of Anima, but if I asked you, like, what does the Frightened condition do in Pathfinder 2e, I'm sure you would know.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's something where I do think that they could do more chunky games. Granted, they'll probably have to get some things wrong. They'll probably have to go with the flow and just get to it. But I feel like... Yeah, it does. I feel like the novelty of discovering games is a very attractive quality that can get viewers for their content. If they can just do that while maintaining the same vibe that they already do, I think that would only help, especially because now people I just don't think are as interested in content because it's D&D.
I think it'd be a when Dimension 20, if they start doing it, I think it would work better than if Evantris did it or if Critical Role did it, because I think it's just what is the audience coming for. Like, yeah. 4D, especially for Critical Role. Critical Role, I think, is the avenue to have it be front and center for different systems and get people really interested in different systems. Because it's way more like, let's watch people actually play the game who are very good actors and like can do a lot of really cool role play. And then Dimension 20 is going to be like, oh, this is fun, this is funny, it's going to be whimsical, and it'll have a lot of emotional good moments, but like, it's still like a fun show.
Yeah.
And then to that extent, it's like, oh, and like, oh, they're playing a cool kind of looking game. Because they do cut out a lot of the boring bits.
Yeah.
Dimension 20 combat at least is more fun, because its flow is very quick. But like, I'll say the weaker episodes of their shows are the one where they do a combat for the entire thing.
Yeah.
I can't make myself care about D&D combat or any tabletop combat because I could just play it.
Yeah. One day, when I have a lot more free time, I think what I would like to do is start curating and designing like not shorter live plays, but like cutting the episodes down and really like... It'd be a thing of like during the live play, like, all right, so let's just recap this real quick for the episode. And then we recap it. And then, you know, and then when I'm cutting it and doing everything, then it's like, okay, what just happened got essentially dramatized and made interesting for, you know, the channel's like video And then people who want to see more of the nitty gritty can go to the live play and look at the live play and how it's done.
It's the Evantris like release model. I think it's just so smart. Like, go super hard in like the TikTok like short form game, and then you have slightly longer versions of the episodes, and then the full episode. You have those three, like, just different forms of content appealing to many different people. Like, their release, I mean, obviously the quality, but the release schedule, like release method of Legend of Evantris is probably like the big reason they're so popular right now.
Yeah.
Like, it's so smart.
I mean, yeah, shorts have obviously helped them dramatically.
Yeah, it's just it is like, that's how I discovered them. I saw a short of Chuckles doing a monologue from Dune. I'm like, this is funny. Like, what is this? That was a perfect from memory rip of the litany against fear. Like, goddamn. And then like after that, I was like, all right, I actually like this.
Yeah. And I like to do that because honestly, like, what I wanted to do with my channel is to show people why games are fun, you know. And what I've done so far is been breaking down like why classes in Pathfinder or some other game are good, you know, like, yeah, sure, here's a bunch of numbers on the paper, but let me, someone with an experience, tell you in a very like easy to digest fashion why this is good and what you can do with it. And turning that on to a system itself, I think would be good, and I would love to do that. It's just, it would require a lot more general effort than I could put forward at this time. But like at some point in the future, I would love to be like, all right, so we're gonna run the game. Then we're gonna have these moments where we just kind of like, okay, let's just rehash real quick, you know, for the video, what's done, and then keep the ball rolling and everything like that, so that people can like watch the shorts of the cool moments and be like, oh, that's cool, get hooked, go to the videos, watch them, and be like, oh, this session looks really cool, and all the things they're doing in the game seems really interesting as well. And then people who are like the real nerds can go and watch the live plays and see how it's actually played, because there are people out there who are like, no, give me the unedited live play, I want to see it all. So I think it's something that we're in an interesting time. And like I said, I do think those channels are going to have the ultimate say in what is popular in tabletop moving forward, for better or worse, honestly. But I do think we're going to start moving away from D&D, mostly because of just the baggage D&D is going to have. And I feel like the D&D numbers aren't going to be as good anymore. And I think, honestly, like, we're getting at a good point where people who have been in the hobby for a good number of years now are kind of just getting tired of what D&D has to offer and are going to be looking for new stuff. And I think it would be very smart for companies to recognize and buy into that, because if I could tell anything from how desperate some of the D&D channels have been lately and how many of them have shifted their content away from D&D or are trying to, D&D is just not really doing it for people anymore, and variety tabletop really should. Like, honestly, XP to level 3, Jacob has been doing amazing at like flexing around D&D. Like, most of the D&D stuff he does touch nowadays are terrible homebrew and just stuff on the DM's Guild that he can just point and laugh at,
which is the type of D&D content I can get behind.
Yeah. And he's been making a lot of other types of content for other, like, tabletop in general. So I think he's just been like a really good, and it's been evident in the fact that he's been getting tons of views. So, but all right, that's gonna be the end for today. A little bit of a shorter one. We had some technical difficulties at the beginning, and by shorter I mean 5 minutes short. So, you know.
Yeah, I mean, the real aspect of reason it's shorter is because we're also not going immensely over time.
Yeah, to be fair, we're not 20 minutes over talking about a subject. There will be some more interesting stuff coming up soon. Next year is going to be a crazy year for tabletop too. There's a lot of interesting games coming out, and Daggerheart, I think, is going to be a very interesting game to like keep the pulse on for the foreseeable future, because like I said earlier, tabletop is very slow. The scene itself is very like non-reactive, So it's going to take time for people to start digesting these new games that are coming out and to see like what's good, what's not good, what people are interested in. And I do think there's a lot of evidence that there's a lot of names in the scene kind of moving behind the scenes to come out with some interesting tabletop in the near future. So like this might just be the first year of like the new indie renaissance, and we just don't know it yet because, it's just a slow moving scene. But, who knows? But before we head out, Alex, anything you want to leave us off with today?
Yeah, if you like lore content, go check out my channel, Blue Boy. You'll find a bunch of lore stuff, especially for World of Darkness. I will come back soonish. My plan is to hopefully have a video next week. But there's a lot of other things I'm working on and dealing with in my real life, and I do not have the energy or want to do videos right now. I'm taking a small break. But when I return, it'll be with a vampire video on Clan Giovanni, a bunch of absolute creepy fucks. So it'll be very fun.
And as for me, as I mentioned before, we have a video coming out tomorrow where we talk with another channel, What is Tabletop, which is a really fun video. I recommend watching it.
Yeah, I'll shout that one out.
And for sure, as well, I do want to get back to making some videos. I do want to finish all the Cosmere, like the different rating orders and the paths. And I do want to get back to eventually touching on Fabula Ultima because I feel like that game does need a lot more coverage. And I don't know. I do want to finish all the classes for Starfinder 2nd Edition, but I might take a break from Paizo games for a little bit as far as content on the channel, which is probably a bad thing, if I'm going to be honest, because they do the best numbers on the channel.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
All in on Lancer.
There's some Lancers. Actually, I do have some Lancer stuff I need to touch on as well, because there's a lot of stuff and people are like, "Where's the Lancer?" You stop making videos. I might get some of their books too and check them out.
New ones. Yeah, like I did an update for one of my better performing videos, just like part 3. Here's all the new shit.
Yeah. So there's a lot in the scene that I want to do, and maybe I'm just at a point where I'm getting a little bit of Pathfinder burned out. That might be just the case, and so just taking it easy for a little bit probably be a good thing, and make me enjoy the game more, which is always good. And yeah, I have lots of plans, but my life and the baby has to come first. But with that, I guess we're gonna go ahead and say goodnight.
Good night.
Good night.